It's 40 years to the day since 39 people were killed at Europe's biggest football match, the European Cup final at the crumbling Heysel Stadium in Brussels, when Juventus supporters were crushed after a wall collapsed when they fled attacks by Liverpool supporters. Here's Peter Jones reporting on the day for BBC Radio.
If you just joined us, I should tell you of the awfulness and the violence. The worst that I have ever seen has occurred here in the Heysel Stadium in Brussels. Liverpool supporters massed away to our left, attacked Juventus supporters, of which there were a small section on that same side. They charged into the Juventus supporters, who fled in terror.
It came at the end of a violent and tragic season in English football, several games marred by crowd violence and 56 people killed just 2 weeks earlier in a fire at Bradford City Stadium. 14 Liverpool fans were convicted of manslaughter. English teams were banned from European football for 5 years. In 1989, a crush at Hillsborough in Sheffield resulted in the deaths of 97 Liverpool supporters. Michael Hamell was at Heysel. He was caught up in the crush and he's with us now. Michael, we appreciate this was an awful experience for you and we thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Thanks, Gavin. Thank you.
How did you come to be at the match that night?
Well, I had begun working in Brussels a few years earlier for the European Commission, and we had a hurling and football team and we had a soccer team, and through the soccer team, which played in the Belgian Embassy League, we managed to get tickets, about 10 or 12 tickets for the match, and that's how I got my ticket.
Can you take us through your memories of what happened that night?
Yes. Well, we left the Berlaymont after work, so around 6:30 in the evening, off on a direct line to Heysel on the metro. And we got into the ground without any difficulty. Show your tickets, have a look and see were you carrying anything, and straight into what was described by the Belgian authorities as the neutral part of the stadium. So the neutral part of the stadium was behind one of the goals, and most of that terracing was made up of Liverpool supporters, and the other was made up of neutral supporters like ourselves. There was a good few, certainly Italian supporters, but you should remember or recall, I recall that the Italian supporters were largely the sons of miners, or many of them were the sons of miners who had come up after the Second World War to Charleroi to work. And then things were grand. We were enjoying the atmosphere as you would at any match. And the next thing, we started getting missiles thrown at us by the Liverpool supporters, or by a very small cohort. But, harmless stuff, apples, bananas, tomatoes, that kind of thing. But then the mood changed and they started to throw rocks, they started to throw bottles at us, and I could sense the whole crowd moving downwards towards the ground, or towards the pitch. Then rather dramatically, the Liverpool thugs got over the barrier and charged, and I always remember the pose that they had, and to think that they had the colours of Liverpool Football Club on them a few moments before. The crowd panicked, as you could expect. They were middle-aged, older people, there were people with their children, everybody there, and moved down, and that was really what caused most of the destruction, the pressure that moved the crowd down. I was halfway up the stadium, and very, very quickly, my friends, everyone, it was every man for himself. And I said, well, I'm a big, strong fella. I'm going to hold my ground, because I couldn't see that should go down. But eventually, even I and a few other guys around me were rolled to the ground and pushed down. As literally like an avalanche, a small, slow avalanche. I got under, I squirmed my way under a crowd barrier. When I fell, 5, 6, 7 people fell on top of me. But I did get my hands and my arms up and held my ground underneath the barrier, and that's certainly what saved me. After, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 minutes, the pressure began to ease. When the pressure eased, I was able eventually to get up. I was pretty well bruised and damaged, but not badly damaged, not badly bruised, and I could stand up. But the guys beside me, on either side of me, who were on my arms, never got up. And that's a moment, that's a time that will stay with me. And then the Red Cross came, they took me down onto the pitch, and I walked to the far end just to take a rest. When I got to the far end, I looked back, and the pitch was actually cleared at that stage, and the two teams came out and played the match. I just got sick and fed up, and got a metro and went back to Schumann, to where my friends were. And then we had a terrible night of waiting, and 39 people died. Most of them Italians, or Italians with Belgian connections. 4 French people, some Belgians, and a man from Belfast. And my whole memory is of the stupidity of this nonsense. Attacked at a football match, and so much damage to so many people.
Michael, it must have been very frightening for you. Even watching on television that night as a child in primary school, it was astonishing that the game went ahead. The man from Belfast who was killed, he was 38-year-old Patrick Radcliffe. And as I mentioned at the start, it was a terribly violent and tragic year in English football. Regular mindless and cruel attacks on fans, the riots at Luton, the awful fire at Bradford. But Heysel isn't and wasn't talked about to the same extent as other football disasters, especially in England. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I suppose it was, Belgium wasn't a country that you could in any way associate with violence at football matches in those days. I always thought that there was a sense in part of the British press that you could find fault with somebody else, rather than taking the reality and saying, our fans started this. You could always find someone saying, well, some Belgians threw rocks or anything, but I can assure you from where I was, nobody did anything. And I think that belief that you were, it was almost a mistake that happened and you were goaded, was part of the problem. But also, of course, the other tragedies, the one a few weeks beforehand was, on the doorstep and very visible to people. And the ones shortly afterwards, much the same.
Michael, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Really appreciate it. Michael's account was part of the Sunday Miscellany programme last week. It's 40 years ago today since 39 people were killed in the Heysel Stadium disaster in Brussels.